We want to get some news out of China, get to Beijing right now. The country's central bank setting the official reference rate for the yuan at now its weakest official level in a decade. Eunice is on the ground there in Beijing with more on the midpoint number that traders are watching, and they do it now very closely at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Used to tell people they needed to be up at 6 a.m. to watch Squawk Box. Now you have to be at 9 p.m. to watch.
Just keep watching for fast money on.
Well, yes, you have other interests. I know. Eunice.
It's worth it. It's worth it to stay up that late. So the central bank, as you said, the central bank set the midpoint fix weaker than 7, but it was actually stronger than what a lot of analysts had been expecting. And so because of that, traders were taking that as yet another sign that the government here wants to pull the reins back on the Chinese currency. So there was no official commentary today on the fix, but it was pretty interesting to see what came out of the state media. So, for example, Xinhua, which is a state-run news agency, ran a headline that said, RMB rate against the dollar breaking 7 has the potential to stabilize in the future. Also, the Communist Party paper, the Global Times, had a piece that quoted a researcher who is very closely linked to the Chinese Commerce Ministry. And that researcher said further depreciation will not be very fast to the 7.1 or 7.2 level. It will not take a long time before the rate returns to below 7. In other words, expect the yuan to maintain some strength. So separately, the trade data was out for July, and it was a surprise to the upside. Exports rose by more than 3% when expectations were for a fall. Imports shrank, but it was less than what people had been expecting. And so the read has been that global demand looks as though it's still holding up, even though the exports to the U.S. contracted. And that just has been telling people that the tariffs that President Trump is putting on China are taking their toll. Guys?
What kind of... You had a look on your face. Do you have a question for her?
No.
I have a question for you, Eunice. There was a quote in a Tom Friedman piece. Did you guys see this piece earlier this week about the U.S. and China? And he quoted a guy named Jim McGregor. This is the chairman of APCO China. And he says the old trade regime, this is sort of how I was thinking about how we could get back on sides with China. Is there a way to get back on sides? He says the old trade regime was based on the idea that America was a rich country and China was a poor country, and therefore China was entitled to certain advantages and tolerances of its misbehavior. We should say to China, this is the U.S. should say to Chinese, you now are our economic equal. Give them that dignity. Tell them we want to restart these negotiations on the basis of total reciprocity and that we should have the same rules of access to each other's economies. Do you believe if we started the conversation there, that would actually change the dynamic?
Well, I love Jim. He's a good friend of mine. But it is good for the U.S. to be able to recognize and pay a lot of respect and face to the Chinese. But what I think the Chinese government would say, since we've heard it a lot from, say, the premier and as well as the president, is that China is still a country that has a lot of poor people. So that's why, from the Chinese perspective, they see that they are the second largest economy in the world. They know that they're on this path in their minds to some sort of to greatness, and they want to keep on that trajectory. But they also have a whole lot more people than a lot of other countries. So they see that development goes in stages, and they have to consider all of these different markets within markets and all these people who they want to bring along. And so from their perspective, they still do believe that they are a developing country. You can say that it's convenient when they believe that, but still, that is something that they do have to think about.
Okay. Eunice.
Maybe I've lost the plot, but isn't that exactly what this trade war is about? We're resetting with China, and we're saying you shouldn't be able to steal our IP, force transfers of our IP. We should take a look at the trade surplus.
Right, but
you guys are an economic power. We're an economic power.
But do you do it and just try to get to zero on everything? That would
not the trade surplus.
Right. That would be a very interesting thing to do. Eunice, want to thank you. By the way, I'm glad she didn't get blacked out today. I don't know if you saw, she put out a tweet yesterday, which went then viral. I mean, viral. Did it go viral in China? Do you hear from anybody?
No, it didn't go viral in China. a couple of people who reach. There are a couple of people on Twitter who are in China who have access to. No,
Okay.
not going viral.
Eunice, Yoon in Beijing, thank you again.